You unlock this benefit with the key of Patreon. Beyond is another dimension. A dimension of thought. A dimension of speculation. A dimension of mind. You're moving into a land of both waffle and substance. Of things and ideas. You've just crossed into the podcast zone. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Trekking Through the Twilight Zone. Myself and Julian Darius, we are going to be going episode to episode through the Twilight Zone, and we have reached Trumpet. And so, first off, Julian, what do you think of this episode? What were your first thoughts?
Pretty much this is a very straightforward episode. Really, its one trick is, the angel Gabriel blows a trumpet, so our protagonist does too. And he dies and gets to meet him.
Yeah, this episode was, but you've literally just said the plot. Jazz trumpeter, down on his luck, known alcoholic or known drinker, sells his trumpet and then decides to commit suicide later on, and whilst being dead, meets the angel Gabriel, who sort of reinforces that music is a great thing. This is, and then he's like, "Yeah, you're right," and then goes back. And luck allows him to buy the trumpet back, and that seems to be like, this is such a slight episode. I was a little bit shocked.
It almost like there's a gambling episode that we did earlier. It feels like at times this is going to be that for alcohol, because this trumpet player is an alcoholic, and he has this discussion about how that destroyed his career. Okay. And then he gets the trumpet back at the end, and you're like, all right, what's he going to do with this? He's completely still down on his luck. And the final narration is like, it's one of these kind of, there are other episodes like this that are sort of like, the secret to life is enjoying it and letting yourself be yourself. It's like, all right, that's great. I'm not sure how his life is going to be rich and rewarding and full of beauty. That's great. But he's still an alcoholic. Has he given up alcohol? Yeah. No mention of that.
Well, there are two parts to this film. There's one that I really like, and there's one that really bothers me. And the ending is the one that really bothers me. Because he literally comes back, and like you say, he hasn't dealt with his alcoholism. He doesn't have a job. He still has a reputation for having fouled up on stage. So is he going to be able to get a job? And then he meets this woman on the roof of his building, and she's like, "I'm new to New York." And he basically sort of like, "Oh, let me show you around." And you sort of think, "Oh, cool. This is supposed to be this is a new opportunity for him. This is going to be." But all I can think of is, how long is this going to last before it becomes, the next episode of the Twilight Zone, where it's sort of like, meet Doris. She's beaten regularly by her trumpet playing husband.
Who keeps talking about the afterlife and the angel Gabriel, which, it turns out is true.
Yeah. It felt really sort of just so slight and silly. I was a bit disappointed by this. Well, I was quite disappointed. It just felt odd. The bit I did like, though, and this is the thing, with all these episodes, there's always a concept or something. When he does die and he comes to on that street, and there are the people, he meets the copper, and then there's the guy brushing his hair, and there's the woman in the booth, and he hasn't got a reflection, and he thinks that all these people are living people that are unable to interact with him because he's dead. And it turns out, as the angel Gabriel says, is no, they're dead too. They're the ghosts. They just can't accept their death, and so we sort of allow them to keep living this false existence and running this routine. And I'm like, no, that's your story.
Yeah, no, that is really weird, right? That twist is really weird, and it plays into the sort of like, where is everybody first episode thing of, that sort of creepiness of, oh, they can't see me. And then, like you say, there's that twist, except it only comes in dialogue with Gabriel, and then it's never really expounded on.
Yeah, it's like the best part of the episode, and I'm like, oh, cool. They're gonna no, it doesn't come up again. It's completely irrelevant. Yeah, it's an odd episode because there's not even like an instigating factor as to what other than hearing somebody else play a trumpet and him going, yeah, you're good. Yeah, but you heard someone at the beginning that was good, and it doesn't sort of seem to pay off. And we've seen similar things. I was thinking of the cowboy one again, where he gets the gun, the chance, and he sort of like ends up getting shot in the hand, as does the younger version, that equivalency of himself as a younger version sort of thing, the cowboy. I'm like, at least that had this idea, fate. We said it was a bit iffy because fate intervenes and all this other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But at least that was like an inciting incident that drove that, that behavior.
Yeah.
And even some of the others we've had, like, these things where people have made bargains in the afterlife and stuff. They've had some sort of instigation or some sort of inciting incident. This doesn't seem to have anything. It's so linear that it's sort of like, it's almost inevitable. It's bizarre.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that the one sort of thing that I like is the idea of this lost trumpet player finding a kind of simpatico relationship with Gabriel, and the idea of, the Archangel Gabriel playing a present day trumpet. It's just so absurd yet charming. That I like, but it's a sort of charming idea that doesn't hang an episode around it. And like you say, I mean, the ending is sort of, I mean, a relationship is not going to straighten out your life.
Make it more complicated if you are, if you, especially, and I cannot speak. I'm not, luckily, touch wood, I've not had to go through the situation. But if you are trying to get off something like alcohol or going through an, Alcoholics Anonymous kind of situation, having to go through the early stages of a relationship, I can imagine, complicates things somewhat. So yeah,
right. I mean, it's also really dangerous to show people, as Hollywood routinely does, that, you're a mess. What you really need is to find a good man. What you really need is to find a woman who's going to save you.
Yeah.
Oh my God, is this a bad idea to put out there into the ether?
Yeah, it's this is, and it's like, it's all fine. Like, there's nothing egregious in this episode, but it's like a flat line. It's the only way I can feel about this episode. It's a complete flat line. To the extent of I spent minutes whilst watching this identifying the main characters. Like, I know that actor. Oh, he plays Quincy later on in life.
Yeah. No, there is that sort of just. I mean, again, like you said, it's not a bad episode. There's nothing really objectionable. I mean, we've riffed on the ending, but it's fine for what it is. It just doesn't really go anywhere. It's one of those sort of one-trick ponies where you think, okay, this is good for being written and produced in the span of a week. That's awesome. Good for you. It could have used another month of thinking, to sort of tweak that plot and think about what themes really you want to bring out, whether it's alcoholism or, Gabriel or something about music, and I don't know.
Oh, yeah. The one thing the two things I would change in this is because it's so linear, so flat. Like, I don't feel there's any tension in it. Give it like a ticking clock of some kind, or some pressure. Like, he needs to get a job to pay off somebody for whatever purpose. Like, he is under threat. So the reason he's desperate to work as a jazz musician is, he wants to be a jazz musician, but he needs to have a job. And when he has to sell his trumpet, like, give him a real justification for committing suicide. Like, he has no other alternative. I want just these beats. Like, he has to pay the mob. I don't know. This is one of those things. He owes the mob money. But he's driven to sort of selling his trumpet to make the money to pay them back, but then uses it for alcohol. because he's not whatever, and ends up committing suicide in desperation. And then it's the angel Gabriel that's like, well, no, if you follow if you follow your bliss, it'll all work out in the end. In the Twilight Zone. Instead of meeting a woman, have him just sort of go, yeah, do you know what? Inevitably, like, I am going to have the crap beat out of me, but I've got my trumpet back and I'm going to play this. And have him, like, play it and someone go, hey, man, you're good. We're looking for someone to play tonight. Can you be at so-and-so? But give it something where it's like, oh, actually, he is good. He is going to get a second chance. Give him that opportunity. It just doesn't feel like, I don't feel like there's anything, like, stepping in front of a trumpet.
There's no stakes.
Yeah, it's just so flat-lined.
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying. The one way in which I'd play devil's advocate, again, is not somebody who was thrilled by this episode, is that the part of the episode that resonates for me and that I think is salvageable or, could be brought out is this idea of how we have dreams of ourselves. And, especially, of course, this is another white guy, especially, as white men, you have a little bit of talent and it's like, I'm going to be the next great trumpeter, right? I'm going to be the president. I'm going to be whatever. But the reality in most people's lives is that they thought they were going to be the next great trumpet player. And maybe they did get a couple recordings that got put on the jukebox, which is sort of charming and as a kind of gift to him. But, it didn't work out. But that's okay. I still enjoy, I screwed up. I got drugged down by alcohol. Maybe I could have been a contender. But, this kind of like making your peace with not being the best, that you can just enjoy the music. That part I really like. And so him getting another chance to like be the big guy is would go against that for me. I like the idea that maybe he gets that relationship and it's okay that this is a hobby or, an occasional side gig and, he finds love and happiness despite that. But then it's a different story. It's about letting go of your dreams of being the best and great success.
Yeah. Being satisfied and being humble, I suppose, and comfortable in your life. And yeah, no, it's true. Yeah, but again, if you want the ending, then you need something at the beginning for him to be giving up. He needs to be, like you say, because you say about being the big guy. He's only working at a club. Like, it's not a big thing. So I don't know. Yeah, you need something, like you say, like, he's had he's had something that could give him that opportunity. He's got to give up. But yeah.
It doesn't dramatize like how good he was. Like, was he just a good player who, somebody would pass by and be like, you should be playing in the local club? Or was he somebody who really had a shot, who was brought down? You don't get a feel for that. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it doesn't set it up well. It doesn't know from the start what the themes really are going to be. No.
It is an interesting one in that sense of like, it felt just incredibly flat. And also another addition, we're getting close to the end of the season, and we will do an overview. And again, I've mentioned before how there was a theme of I'm going to refer to it from this point on as the Wonderful Life episodes.
Yes.
And we will be referring to that again soon enough.
Yes.
But they do come again and again. This idea of sort of here's what you could have won, and people go, oh no, I don't like that. Or it changing them in the moment.
That's in our DNA as Americans, but especially Midwestern Americans. And, and it's also there even in, I mean, we'll get to this in talking about the season in retrospect, but in some of those like nostalgic episodes where it's sort of like, okay, that time has passed, but settling is good. It's a wonderful life. It's okay.
Yes. Anyway, right, we're coming to time. So, any final thoughts for this episode?
No, I like Gabriel. Then that's about it.
Yeah. No, it's a perfectly adequate episode in the sense of like it's presented well, it looks fine. I wish they'd explore this idea of what this afterlife is like more. I'm fascinated by that idea. Other than that, it's all a bit flat for me. But yeah, no, not bad. We shall continue with our trek through the Twilight Zone. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening. Hope you're enjoying our trekking, and we shall see you on the next episode.